Hi, welcome to Authentic Ingenuity Entrepreneur. My name is Minna. So today I will be just doing a quick update and a little quick review of whereabouts am I at in regards to my court case. For those that are new on board with my channel, welcome. If you've been following me on Facebook page, you'd find that bits and pieces of my video clips from my YouTube channel is on my page, and then I've been consistently posting posts in regards to the laws that is applicable to my case. Just for a quick review for those that are actually new on board as far as getting to know me personally on Facebook and my YouTube channel. My case is basically a case of where I'm the actual victim in this matter. So the case itself, in general, it's a case where I'm being left behind. So I'm the victim, but just from a breach of privacy. If you've been following me going through my YouTube channel, I sort of kind of started my YouTube channel of a little bit of an introduction and background about myself in the beginning. Then I sort of kind of like taught about a privacy breach, trying to, get everyone to understand how important or how relevant it is to know what is a privacy breach. Now, so if you go through those channels, you'll see that I've got little clips there about privacy breaches. Well, my case, going forward to today, my case basically is a case of a person being left behind in her set of circumstances. So what I'm trying to prove as the actual victim and the plaintiff in the matter as a whole, keeping in mind it's my personal journey, and it's my personal journey and what happened to me during these incidents that happen. I've chosen to disclose this information because it is a real life court case, and because I've chosen to put it out there to not only to help others, and basically because the laws have changed so much. So this case here is basically everything I disclose on my page or on my YouTube channel is to do with what happened to me during those incidents. So the case itself is where I've been left behind. When I say I've been left behind, just from a privacy breach and a negligence from when the complaints were laid back in 2010, they weren't being investigated, or I never got the proper intervention where someone could actually investigate at that point of time to make sure, that the court case itself or whatever happened to me at that point of time didn't accumulate to a very serious set of circumstance that I went through since I lost my privacy. So if you watch my channel and you go through each video, from the beginning it doesn't really make sense, but you're talking about privacy breaches, you're talking about things that are happening to you like in a ghostly manner, but you know that they are happening, but you can't do anything about it except just collecting evidence within the moment. Just to get to the point, so my case is one now that actually falls in the Crimes Act 1961. Historically, because I'm the victim and all these things have taken place in my life to one person in my own personal journeys. So in this case of mine, I'm actually the kind of things that have actually happened is where my liberty was definitely taken away. So I'm a victim where my liberty is taken away, my dignity was taken away, and definite signs of black market and blacklisting, and definite case of cyberbullying and cyber attack. So what I'm trying to prove to the court, just through documentations alone, by my personal profile, I can actually prove to the court that my case is one not of family violence. Definitely not a family violence. I can confirm that. Yes, there were family members possibly that were involved, but the case itself is 100% not family violence. So that is what I'm trying to prove to the court, and this is what I'm trying to get out there to help everybody, so then they know what to look out for when you are subject to the sort of things that I've been subject to. The case definitely is one where I am left behind. So most of the incidents have happened with it to me, but they've been premeditated. So there are incidents and set of circumstances that are not natural, but the people that were used, or the perpetrators that were used behind the scene or within my space, were being, they call it today micromanaging, but in the Crimes Act 1961, it's called organized crime. So that's what I'm trying to put out there, is that, and prove to the court and to the public that my case itself is one of organized crime, and it falls in the Crimes Act 1961. Why it's not family violence? Because my case involves the public scrutiny, it involves government agencies, and I'm able to prove that just by the documentations. And then there are other evidence that can be proven that, these government agencies all participated. So it's definitely not family violence. That's what I'm trying to prove. However, within the moment, like going back when I was working for my employer, because that's where it started, my employer. I worked for my employer I've worked in the government agencies for over 17 and a half years, different jurisdictions, but my privacy breaches started when I was working with my employer, and then slowly but surely the invasion, I'm talking about the invasion in my personal space, invasion in my private life, invasion that involved my families and everybody else close to me. So that's what I'm talking about, what a privacy breach can do to one individual. So this is the kind of case that we're looking at. So since the last episode, which was episode 59, I was actually going over the notice of objection for order to strike. The next hearing was the 27th of February 2017. So basically I'm just going through this interlocutory application that was in the courts at that point of time. So what I'm actually doing for all of these little incidents on this documentation, I've basically just put in the relevant information just to address cyberbullying, just to address the mistakes that were made with these mental health assessments. Some of the incidents are actually goes back like 20 years ago, the part where I'm talking about when I actually did commit suicide or tried to commit suicide, but that what I'm trying to point out is in my evidence, although they've gotten my profile, in one big file or whatever you want to call it, but the incidents itself took place about 20 years ago. When I talk about these incidents, I'm basically talking about what happened 20 years ago. I'm actually reliving and reacting from my own words and from my own memory at that point of time, what actually took place at that point of time. Nobody else can interpret what actually took place at that point of time as accurate as I can, because it's my medical records. So the incidents that happened at that point of time only involve what happened at that point of time. So the emotions and the experience that I went through, I'm addressing, it was only happen at that point of time. And also, as you're watching my video clips, you can see that I'm trying to fill in the gaps of my personal profile, filling in the gaps of my footsteps of what actually took place at that point of time. So what actually happened at that point of time is what I've actually put on that notice of objection to order to strike. If you watch all the other clips, if you've been following me, everything all should make sense to you now, or those that are already, involved in the law or in the government, or have, or familiar with what I'm saying because of, their background. Whereas for others, it'd be kind of difficult to take on board because it's quite a little bit complex and very complicated to sort of get your mind around it. You'll also notice on my YouTube channel that I'm being repetitive. Now, if you've ever been in a court case and if you've ever listened to a judge, the judges are always like repetitive too. So there's a reason for that. The reason is because you're mainly focusing on the file, you're mainly focusing on the laws, you're mainly focusing on the relevant information that was very important, or the key elements of what actually happened at that point of time. So you kind of, if you notice, if you're watching me, I have been quite repetitive, but that's because I'm focusing and mainly concentrating and making my emphasis on the key components or the key elements of my case that is relevant as far as the law is concerned, and as far as me as being the victim, or in this case. So being repetitive is all part of a court case, and so if you think I'm being repetitive, I'm just explaining this is part of the territory or part of the role that things that go on in court. Now also it's also if you've ever been to court, or for anyone who's been involved, anything to do with government agencies that deals with the not so good side of society, it's quite a morbid kind of a atmosphere, because it's always serious. The people themselves aren't morbid, but the actual job, it feels like that sometimes. It's always negative, but it is part of the role. The whole seriousness about it is it's very serious. You'd find most people with that kind of mindset don't play around. They're very black and white individuals, and they're straight to the point. And so that's the kind of mindset that I'm coming through in my channel. So since my last episode, as you can see, there's been a massive gap because I've had a lot of things going on in my own personal life, and at the moment we're dealing with COVID here in our country in New Zealand. Okay, so now continuing with my actual court case, it's still, as far as I'm concerned, it's not finalized yet. Since the 12th of April to 2021, this year, I've spent quite a bit of time, and I actually lodged more applications with the courts at the Auckland courts. Unfortunately, the application sat in court for about 101 days, and then a judgment was made. I won't go over what actually happened during that period of time. As you can see, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to undo, or make that error that's taken place with those unlawful strikes as far as the judgments were concerned with the courts. The reason being, the information that was made weren't correct. They're unlawful strikes, which means my case, what I've proven to the court, or trying to prove to the court, that my case is a criminal case, and I had already proven to the court that at that point of time, these doctors that made these mental health assessments, they all just trying to think of what happened, just get my mind around it. Yeah, there were unlawful strikes because the evidence or the mental health assessments made by all 6 doctors, they were actually already proven in court with the evidence that I submitted that they were actually, the doctors didn't qualify because according to the laws here in my country, they had operated outside their scope. Not only that, if there was only one doctor that didn't operate outside the scope, but the problem was they had no medical evidence. They didn't have any medical evidence or sufficient medical evidence about my mental health to actually even use the Mental Health Act. And now every case of, every person's set of circumstance is different. So I'm trying to point out I'm only focusing on my circumstance. So, somebody else's circumstance is, it's not mine, or whatever happened to that other person, that's their file. But the file that I'm dealing with is mine. So what I'm proving to the court is they did not have any relevant, sufficient evidence to even use the Mental Health Act at all. They had nothing in my medical records to prove that I was unstable, that I was mentally impaired in any way, mentally, spiritually, and even like naturally, as far as, I had a stable life. Even though my background, I had a lot of difficulties in my background, and I'm not the type of person, for those that know me well, I'm not the type of person like, feel sorry for me or, that kind of person. I'm actually one of these people that I just look at the problem, find a solution, and then I just go forward the best way I can. The problem is I'm subject to cyberbullying or cyber attacks where everything I do is either being sabotaged or people are just stealing off me, left, right and centre. But I can also confirm that since 2008, that's when the actual cyberbullying started, was at my work employment for my employer at the time. Unfortunately, it was with the Ministry of Justice, it was with the courts, but that is exactly what happened. So, I'm voicing out what actually happened to me from my point of view, that I felt I was being exiled. The privacy breaches started at my employer, and then over the years I got dangerously became isolated and exiled, and it kind of continued on and on. So although all these incidents happen, as the actual victim in this, and the plaintiff, I did everything I could to use the laws that were available to me to get intervention. So the cases are left behind kind of a case. So if you've been watching me on my Facebook page, you'll just notice that I've put posts there about sitting ducks. And I'm quite sure a majority of society, we all just, the good civilian or citizens, mind their own business, just, get on with life. In my situation, that is what I've been like, one of these people that minded her own business. Yeah, sure, I had a bit of a social life, but I also had a very private life that was, very busy at the time. During these times, these incidents happen. But I was also a sitting duck. So I had all these other things, unlawful things happening, and I couldn't do anything about it. I knew I was being attacked, and I have to say they were pretty horrific, really quite scary at the time, at that point in time, that I'm out of it now, and I've actually had a lot of time to heal and focus and moving on, as you do in life. So as far as my court case is concerned, it's not completely over, and as you'll find also the laws enables us, a New Zealand citizen or public member, to make that correction in my profile. So that is what I'm working on at this stage. I've had lots of things going on, so like you do in life, and you just got to go with life as things happen. So I'll just leave it at that, but just keep watching me, and I will continue. Just one moment. Yeah, so I will continue with notice of objection to order to strike. So keep in mind, I've had to kind of, you've got to keep in mind that my case is also why it falls in the Crimes Act 1961, because my case is definitely being sabotage. I found that some of the documents that I submitted were being retyped. So that was quite worrying, and you know, there were evidence in there directing the evidence to, you know, to the wrong person. But I can reassure you that, you know, as far as being a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to dealing with, you know, personal profiles, especially others or my own, accuracy is pretty important. But my case is definitely being sabotaged, where I have found there's definitely been negligence by those in public office. I have also found that the evidence have been, like, my documentations were being retyped, and basically I guess the word for it was sabotage, and definitely an unfair, you know, bias or prejudice, you know, actions have taken place. So I'll leave it at that, and so I'll continue with the court case. So basically you'll see that I'm just continuing with the actual written evidence that was submitted to court at that point in time. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next clip.